I'm pretty sure. Hey, it says this we're live. It says we're live right there.
Oh, perfect.
All right.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
We are live. All right. Greetings, fellow Godless Rockers. I'm Steve.
And I'm Tally from
Monster on Sunday!
Hey, where was Seth on that?
Oh, I've been supposed to chat with you.
Yeah.
You?
Mostly I was just on the receiving end. It was like a religious experience for me. Wow. Okay. No.
Do we need to do it again?
Yeah, that's okay.
I got, it was amazing. So yeah.
That's okay. All right. So joining us here today is Seth Andrews, ex-Christian radio DJ, now born again as the badass host of the podcast, The Thinking Atheist. Seth, the storyteller, radio host, author, world touring speaker, and fellow Godless Rocker. Thanks for coming on the show today.
It is so good to be here. I just love you guys. You know, it's funny. We met in California a while back, and I've had you on the show, and we've seen you play live, and it's just, I love your fearlessness. I love the enthusiasm you have for what you do. I thought I read online somebody's into songwriting, back in the back room, doing the creative thing, thinking about another album. No, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I got excited. I mean, when I read that, I literally was like, oh shit, that's going to be awesome. So now I'm all like, but I'm not going to put any pressure on you, but I'm just saying I'm excited. So.
Well, yes. Ask us that again at the end of the show, because I would love to talk about it, but I want to move on from here and talk about you.
Yes.
All right.
You are our guest.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Okay. Deconversion, ghost stories, radio, and more in this week's episode of
Godless Rockers.
Also, we want to thank our patrons, Robert, Kenneth, Six Spider, Joe Davis, and Adrian for helping us make these shows happen. Please support us on Patreon. So.
Okay, Seth. So we actually want to kick off this show with a little game. Are you down?
Okay, hit me.
All right, so we're going to play this or that, and we have 5 challenges for you. Grandma's little sheet here.
These are life or death.
You mean live or die?
No, life or death.
Okay.
You have to choose this for the rest of your life. Yes. Not for real, but
you can only have one or the other.
In the imaginary era.
Stakes are high. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. The first one is Star Wars, the original trilogy, or Star Trek, the original series.
Oh, shit. Oh, I can't swear on your show, right? Are we?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You can put swear. This is a rock show.
If I had to pick, it'd be Star Trek, the classic series. Yeah.
Okay.
Why would you pick that over?
It hurts me. That hurts me. It hurts me because both are such deeply woven into my childhood. They were both pivotal things for me when I was growing up, and that geekdom have carried with me through the last several decades. But it was the original track that I remember really sort of got me excited about. When you're a kid, the playground of the imagination. I came from kind of a family where it was always about plant yourself in the real world. And so, Trek was one of the first things where we really started to use our imaginations and think, what if? And of course, looking back, I think about Roddenberry and his kind of humanistic messages that so often pervaded the series. So yeah, I might change tomorrow, but today, yeah, Trek, classic, Captain Kirk.
Sweet. Are you with him on that?
I would have to go with Star Wars, the trilogy, but it's a tough choice.
It's like being asked to choose one of your children. It's like Sophie's Choice, right? Like which child should I kidnap? And you're like, oh crap, I can't make the choice. But if
I couldn't fault anyone for choosing either way. Now, if somebody said Star Wars, in general, or Star Trek, the original series, I think it's an easy choice.
It is. Which direction?
Well, if you pretend, if you don't pretend that there's only 3 Star Wars movies that matter, then you have to choose Star Trek.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So you're all of the sort of the watering down of the Star Wars mythos and all the stuff that George Lucas did to fuck up his own franchise and all those horrible missteps. And I actually kind of enjoyed the last few films But I get it. Like, it actually waters down the Star Wars choice
Well,
enough.
I think George Lucas didn't fuck up because he said from the beginning that he chose the strongest 3 parts of the story and made those into movies. And then everybody's like, well, you need to make more. And so what was it, 30 years, 20 years later, he said, okay, fine.
That's not what I'd heard, that he wanted to make 1, 2, and 3 when the technology was available, and it wasn't available yet. And, you know, when I went to go see these special effects showcases that were passed off as Star Wars films, I remember thinking to myself, where's the soul? Where are the characters? Where's the reason? I mean, you can blow me away with visuals left and right, but if I don't care about the people, then to me, I'm not emotionally invested in anything. It's not even a good video game. And so, I mean, I actually wrote about the prequels a little bit in my book, Sacred Cows, because we were talking about the religion of Jediism. And it actually is a religion, and I had a Jediist on the radio a few years back to talk about it. But you know, there's a great documentary, not to drag the answer out. There's a great documentary that everybody should see. It's called "The People versus George Lucas," and it talks about this whole thing that we're talking about now, the culture-changing release of the 1977 classic, and then Empire, and then Jedi, and it was amazing. And then all of a sudden, the prequels. Wah, wah, wah. And then you know, the Star Wars Christmas special makes an appearance, and they just have all these fan boys and girls all come together to discuss it. But there's actually some really insightful stuff in there about sort of what happened to George Lucas, the storyteller, over the course of building his empire. The People versus George Lucas. I highly recommend. Thumbs up.
All right. Thank you for that recommendation. I'm gonna have to check that out. Okay, you ready for the next one?
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one.
This one's tough. Pumpkin spice latte or pumpkin pie?
Pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie. Oh, yeah.
But you never again could have the pumpkin spice latte ever.
I don't need it. You know, you just, that's the foundation. That is the root from which the entire tree springs forth, the pumpkin pie. And you do some homemade whipped cream on top of that, and just a little cinnamon dusted on top, and life is good. That's actually, for me, that's an easy one. So.
Oh my goodness!
I thought that would be tougher for you.
Have you tried hot pumpkin pie? Hot pumpkin pie with cold vanilla ice cream, just splatted right on top. That combo of hot and cold.
I haven't done the ice cream, but like we've done like a cold dollop of homemade whipped cream, and it just kind of melts over the top of it. And you know, I mean, and as I get older, it's hard because the more it tastes better with every year, but my metabolism is slower with every year. And so, you know, as I enjoy food more, meanwhile, I'm surrounded by my stepkids who are 21 and 24, and they have the metabolism of a freaking hummingbird. They can eat anything. They're like, oh, this is delicious. And they're just eating it left and right. I'm just like, oh God, bigger snacks, bigger slacks. No, pumpkin pie, whipped cream. That's going to be my vote.
All right. Perfect. I would have to agree with that for sure. All right. Next question I have for you is, striper or flyleaf?
I got to go with striper on that one.
Really?
Well, I don't know much about flyleaf. So I can't take it personally. The answer to that personally. Plus, I was second row with the old lady on Brady Theater for Stripers to Hell with the Devil tour. When Hurricane, a band called Hurricane, opened up for them, I took a girl named Tina. Now, Tina, I don't think had ever been to a concert before. And so she didn't know what she was getting herself into. She's like, oh, that'd be wonderful. We'll go on a concert date together. So oh, great. I got second row at the Brady Theater, and Striper comes out, and they're dressed in yellow and black spandex, and they're wearing makeup, and their hair's down to their waist, and they're all screaming. And the band that opened up before them was called Hurricane, and the lead guitarist, it was very Spinal Tap, pulled out a cello bow that had fake gemstones that were all glued onto it. And he grabbed his guitar and just went, literally just screeched the cello. I thought she was going to crawl under the chair. And she didn't say anything. She didn't speak the entire way back to her house. She just sat there like she'd just been shell shocked, like she'd just come out of the Vietnam War. I mean, it was just unbelievable. But, you know, even though I make fun of Striper, and I'm right to do so, I do have some affection because they were part of my youth. So yeah, and I'll have to learn more about Flyleaf so I can make a more informed answer next time.
No, that's okay. You know.
Okay.
Maybe you and I should do a public debate about which is better, and I'll be on the Flyleaf side.
All right. Well, I'm going to go. I need to make sure and fully research that. But you and I should take the stage, and we'll see who comes out on top. We'll put a pumpkin pie up for grabs. The winner gets the spoils.
Oh, that sounds like, we're doing this. Actually, there's something hilarious about Striper. They pissed off a lot of their lifelong fans. You know, they've been banned for 30 years or whatever. And their newest album just came out last year. Was it last year or the beginning of this year?
I don't know.
Very recently. And all their fans are like, I cannot believe they titled their album this. And I've loved Striper forever. And I'm never, ever going to listen to a single thing they do again.
Remind me the album title. I can't.
Goddamned Evil.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
They were so in outrage all over the whole page. I'm friends with, I guess, the Striper guy.
That's
Facebook.
only because
So
they haven't read the
in.
Bible where it says that God damns things.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, you wouldn't want to do that if you're Christian because you might lose your faith.
The pious are amazing as to what they choose to get their knickers in a twist over. I remember being in a conversation with somebody who was an evangelist about something. We were talking about the murder or the genocide that God committed in the Old Testament. And this person was completely unfazed. And I think I said something like, God damn it, or Jesus Christ, can you believe it? And they were more offended by my use of language than they were about the murder of another human being. And so I find it interesting what people in that context get themselves worked up over. I think it's very telling, actually.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, so I have actually a couple more for you here. The next one, which one do you want me to do? Actually, this one or that? We struggled with narrowing it down to 5 for you. So
this one.
This one?
You don't have to choose with me. You can have your cake and you can eat it too. So
okay, perfect. So here's pure gluttonous cake fun.
Or pie in this case, pumpkin pie.
All right, here it is. Top or bottom?
I'm gonna need it to hang on just.
You shouldn't have picked a root beer for this occasion.
Top. I don't know.
By the way, we have
I need context for this question.
Pumpkin.
It's consensual.
Really?
Pumpkin beer. Pumpkin wheat.
Can you do that to beer? Like, I think beer tastes like.
Oh, good. I wish you
think
could
beer
smell it.
smells like feet
pie.
anyway. Like, I just don't get beer.
That's because you haven't had pumpkin beer.
I don't understand how you can. Of course,
try it.
I picked up some pumpkin spice espresso beans, and I thought the internet was going to circle my house with torches. Like, what's wrong with you?
Well, yeah.
Is there a such thing? I didn't know that espresso beans grows pumpkin spice flavor.
Pumpkin spices. And I guess it's a riff on pumpkin coffee. It's quite good. But I mean, pumpkin beer. Yeah, I mean, I'd try it.
It's good.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of people that are against pumpkin beer, and they're wrong.
You have a right to your opinion, of course.
It tastes like the pie you described, where even you can taste the whipped cream in there, I think.
Yes.
Don't you agree?
Yeah.
I'd give it a shot. I mean, not a beer guy, but I'd try it.
Yeah.
All right. So you didn't answer our question. Way to skirt it.
No, he did. He said
top. I said top.
Oh, okay.
He said top.
I don't know.
Sorry.
I'm no good at those types of ambiguous responses. No, I don't know. It's going to end up being quote mined on the internet and used in some untoward way.
You will not be able to run for senator.
Yeah.
After this.
Well, actually, after seeing the Kavanaugh hearings, I probably could just.
There you go.
Get in about anyway.
Right through.
No, only if you run as a Republican.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, if I ran as
there is
that. Forgive the digression. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There is that. Okay, last one we have for you. It's a toughie. Sagan, Cosmos, or Demon Haunted World?
I think probably Cosmos, because it was such a transformative experience. It's funny. All my answers have stories. Have you noticed? Forgive me. I was
that's what we want. So
I was an evangelical, right? I'm in, I think, junior high in 1980 when PBS aired the Carl Sagan Cosmos on public television, and my parents, they for some reason allowed us to watch it, and yet they hovered over us. They were like vultures looming over us. And every time that, he would talk about things like the Big Bang or, anything like that, they would be quick to correct and say, well, actually, no, that's not in the book of Genesis, Adam and Eve, blah, blah, blah. And it was just so weird. It was one of those things where we were watching it, but what grieves me the most, I think, is that I never really got properly introduced to Carl Sagan until long after he died. And I had missed out on all the poetry that was him and the way he would talk about our lives and our earth and, the critical nature of humanity needing to be there for each other and make good decisions and embrace science. And so, yeah, I mean,
we've not done at all.
Yeah, if he was alive today, imagine what he would be saying.
He'd be horrified.
And he predicted it, right? He talked about sort of a culture that celebrated ignorance, and then what happens? They're essentially at the mercy of the puppet masters, and we are at some point beholden to those who do have the knowledge, and we become a little bit like the Eloi in H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, not War of the Worlds, Time Machine. So I don't know. I think probably Cosmos has the most pull for me. I liked the reimagining of it with deGrasse Tyson, but the original with Sagan is probably my favorite.
Yeah, I'd have to agree there. And part of making the music video that no one's seen that I'm working on behind the scenes was re-listening and rewatching the entire Cosmos series.
You did that?
Yes.
Dang, you have a lot of time in the morning.
No, it's not in the morning. I do this while I'm at work.
Yeah.
Well, I can listen and
like while you're doing stuff out.
Yeah, out on the property. Anyway.
That's how I stumbled upon Christopher Hitchens stuff. I was at work. I was doing graphic stuff. It's kind of, when you're not doing storytelling stuff, but just you're doing a specific brand of work that just kind of mindless. You just throw something on you can listen to. Mm-hmm. And I threw Hitchens on.
Exactly.
And before I knew it, he was making sense. Hitchens isn't supposed to make sense. And then before I knew it, my whole life had begun changing. And here I am all these years later, kind of sort of talking about what an imprint he made on my life. So yeah, I kind of get that. Another digression.
Hitchens is one of those that I just wish he was still alive today. I would love to hear what he would think about everything that's going on.
Yeah. Never had the chance to shake his hand. It's one of those things where, like, I've met Dan Barker and, it's ex-pastor, and I had the chance to thank him for his book. And there are so many activists who played a positive role in my life. And it's an amazing moment when you get to walk up and say, you've changed my life. Your work is amazing. And, just try not to fawn too much. But you were there at a seminal moment for me, and you didn't realize it at the time that you were producing this or writing this or thinking this or saying this, but it hit me at a crossroads, and it empowered me. And that's what Hitchens did. I remember thinking, I didn't speak in Hitchens's voice. He just gave me the courage to speak in my own. And that's what I'd say to him. I'm like, dude, I'm not an echo of you, but you encourage me to be me. And so anyway, fortunately, most of his work, all of his work, I think, is out there in perpetuity in literary form and on YouTube. And also, so.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Yep. He at least lived in a time where he's forever sort of immortalized in these videos and things people can watch and still gain insight from the knowledge that
I think that also is a hope, because a lot of times people talk about the loss of nuance and things like that. But I think, to digress again, that we're living in an age where you can just go on YouTube and you can talk about something for an hour or two or three, and people will sit there and they'll listen. There actually is a lot of nuance on YouTube and a lot of these other places. There's also just a complete loss of it in a lot of other medias. So I think we're living in a very confused and exciting time. This is a time where, people like us, people like, Monster on Sunday or Seth Andrews can get out there and get their message heard by thousands, millions, maybe more people that never would have had access to that kind of audience before.
Confused and exciting are some good words to describe what we're looking at, right?
I think so.
You wake up in the morning and I'd add in occasionally terrifying. but it's
Oh, yeah.
Well,
it's like a mix of it's amazing, it's horrible, it's terrible, it's exciting, it's it's sort of a it's a blender all the time, trying to get your bearings and see your way through. I've had to start to limit a little bit of my time just on social media, because after a while, you see the barrage of activism, and I tend to attract activism related friends, and I'm certainly glad to do so. But if all you see is the stuff that they're, posting about the worst of the worst that's going on, and they're raising the flag, the alarm bells, times 5,000 friends, times 37,000 followers. Oh my God. You just want to literally put a gun to your, after a while, you're like, I just want to put myself out of my misery, because it's just so overwhelming. And you have to step back from that and breathe and say, yeah, there's a lot of bad, but we have to remember the good. And I don't think that's a cheat. I think there are, for every good person out or bad person out there, I really do think there are others who want to right that wrong and to undo the damage being done.
Yeah, I was just kind of trying to put a positive spin on it, but yeah, I think I couldn't have said it better.
Confusing and exciting. That's it. That may be an album title.
Well, we do have an album title. We just haven't announced it.
All right.
Well, actually, we did last episode.
Yeah.
So we can announce it again. Yeah. But I want to get to that at the end.
Oh, yeah, later.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Back to you.
I'm sorry. I pops into my pea brain and I say it out loud.
That's great.
No, that's great. We're very excited that you're excited. I think a lot of other people are excited too. So I'm going to get back to you, Seth, because you're our guest. So over and over again, I've been drawn into your episodes of The Thinking Atheist. The stories, the callers, the thoughtful questions, and the beautiful, thoughtful monologues. In episode 400, you mentioned struggling with feeling like the content was irrelevant. And I can assure you, it's not.
Oh, thank you.
But what fuels your motivation? Let me try it again. What fuels your motivation?
Well, yeah, for those who hadn't seen or listened to 400, it was I was referencing something that someone had said online about how, whenever creative people, and guys know what this is like, even when you're doing what you love, you have those days when you are, the sort of the vessel is empty. Like I stare at the computer and I can't think of the next word to write. I can't think of the next thing to say. I'm not sure what to tackle next, or I'm just sort of emotionally just kind of feel, oh. And self-care is hard for activists. It's hard for us to unplug, decompress, because anytime we're not activisting, we feel like we're cheating. We should be out there. What are we doing? Self-care is hard. And being kind of a one-man show, because I'm a little bit of a control freak, I really need to delegate more, but I'm kind of like, I know what I want it to sound like. And so let me do it. And that's kind of a vice. After a while, I started to hit that creative wall. And I remember saying something online, and there was someone on the internet, on Facebook, who said, well, your problem is irrelevance. Your problem is you've said everything that needs to be said, and anything anyone ever wants to know about you or these conversations, they can get in the archives. So I think what you're struggling with is your own irrelevance. And I remember thinking defensively, oh yeah, whatever. We've got so much more to say. But under the surface, I actually really struggled with that. It just stuck. It's for 2 years. I think that's every creative person's worst nightmare. Is what if I have nothing else to contribute? What if I have nothing else to say? What if people no longer engage? What if it doesn't matter? Before you know it, I've had those moments of real kind of darkness where you just think, God. And what keeps me going usually is when I am presented with a personal story of someone who was like, I thought I was worthless and I was terrified of hell. And then I listened to this show, episode number 200, whatever. And I was in my car and I just started crying. And it was so amazing to feel like I had value, and that I don't have to be somebody else. And it was so validating. I just wanted to send you an email, or I just wanted to tell you the story. I've had people deliver handwritten letters to me. I've had people write it into music. I had a conversation with 2 people who had been decades-long pastors in Canada, and they in their 50s came to the realization, you know, this doesn't make sense. And so they kind of walked away, and then they found one of my videos and they told me the story. And I got goosebumps telling you the story right now. It just, that's what motivates me is that, you know, when people ask me why do the show, I'm like, well, I'm going to learn stuff. I'm going to help people. I mean, that's really it. So as long as I'm learning things, and as long as we're helping somebody out there, you know, I'll continue to do it. And, you know, there's so many more options these days. Back when I started, there were some podcasts, but now, I mean, there are a lot of people doing it. So people have choices, and I think that's healthy. I think it's necessary. And, you know, hopefully people will still keep me in their top, you know, 20 somewhere. But I'm excited to be a part of the discussion, to be able to be a storyteller. This is a movement, whether it's me speaking, whether it's you doing music, whether it's someone who's painting, or someone who's writing, you know, fiction, nonfiction related to secular values, whatever your art is, this is a movement that still desperately needs storytellers. We've got these great sort of minds, these hive minds, these PhD types, but people they want to go on a journey. People want to hear the story. People want to tell the story. People want to be the story. And I think that's, you know, that's something that, as long as there's a need for that, I'll keep doing it. And I think so will a lot of people.
Awesome. You said a lot of very interesting things there. One of the things you were counting on your fingers, the 2 reasons that you do this. I would say there's probably a third that you're not thinking about, and that is self-expression. Yeah. I feel like it's so important to be able to, and we're lucky we can do it. There are some countries you can't, you'd be considered blasphemy and maybe be, you know, killed or whatnot for your being outspokenness. But there's something to be said for just being able to express yourself and have other people listen and relate. Then that's how you can get those, we call them love notes, and people tell us like, oh my gosh, you just changed my life in some way because of your song or your, you know, whatever happened.
I think those quote love notes are probably the biggest thing to encourage you to keep going, though. Yeah. When you get those notes from people that,
I like, you know, that love notes. I like that, the way that sounds. It's, you know, it's like when you're broadcasting out, and radio more than most mediums, I know music probably qualifies as well, more than video and film and some of the other mediums. These are very intimate mediums. People have an insight into the very personal parts of you. So whether it's a musician who is singing or writing or doing something in a very vulnerable place, and that touches people on an emotional level. Mm-hmm. Storytelling on the radio a little bit is that way too. And, you know, if you go around the country, people will be like, well, they know me, they know what I did, they know what I, you know, ate for breakfast, they know how Natalie is, they hear about Rad Dog and Henry, and they know where I toured last. And so they have all this time to save up the reciprocal, all the stuff they'd like to say back, to reverse the streams and have the other conversation. Mm-hmm. And so that's always kind of an amazing thing, because there's a kinship and a friendship that happens. And I just got back from Minneapolis. We had 200 some people, a packed house of people who were just, you know, they hug you and they smile, and those people who think that atheism removes all the good stuff from your life have no idea what they're talking about, right? I wish they
could not be more wrong.
Yeah, I wish they could just peer in the windows of our lives and see so much good stuff.
Well, on the other end, I would say that religion adds so much bad stuff to your life.
So much baggage.
So much judgment.
Dragging around, judging all your friends, judging yourself constantly under.
And it's irrational.
A lot of stress.
A lot of stress. You know, if somebody believes the wrong things, if they have the wrong sexuality, if they think the wrong way, if they believe science. I mean, I'm sure it could go on, but those are the first things that come to mind. Yeah. That religion can corrupt. Religion poisons everything.
You know, when I was, I've been putting out my Halloween decorations because it's the month of October, and I love Halloween. And, you know, growing up, it was like, well, you never dress up as a witch, never dress up as a demon, never be a devil, no Dracula, because, you know, the the blood, there's sacred blood. And there's a bunch of reasons that so it was always like clowns or Bible characters, just dumb stuff like being able to enjoy the season without worrying about Satanists that are crawling around the neighborhood, kidnapping virgins and sacrificing black cats, and people playing games that open up portals into the spirit world. Because, when you're a believer, especially as a young child, you're trained to believe all this stuff. And to be able to just say, what, this is just fun. It's just it's a playground for really more than kids any day these days. I think it's a playground for adults. Just enjoy it. Make it what you want it to be without all the baggage. It's awesome. It's a beautiful thing. And it's interesting too, to watch the people who are still hung up, who see some of that stuff. And it's like, Natalie and I went to a magic show in Eureka Springs years ago. And one of their souvenirs was a voodoo doll with the little pins in it. And that was one of the souvenirs. So we brought it back, and we had some believer friends come over for dinner. And so they're like, "What's that?" "Oh, that's our voodoo doll." And you could see them both go,
gasp,
like it was a Horcrux, like it had part of Voldemort's soul in it, like it was going to, it contained demonic power. And I thought, God, that's a prison. That's just baggage. And so to shake all that stuff off, it really does make a difference. So anyway.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I got very distracted there for a moment. I'm not sure. What are you doing, Steve?
We got a technical issue somewhere.
No, yeah. Sorry. Just go for it, and I'll be right back.
All right.
He has to go tend to something. It's me and you for a minute. Woo, party time! Now we can really have some fun. That old bag is not around. Just kidding. Okay, so I actually did want to talk to you about what you were saying, because I totally get you with the creative blocks, if you will, where you're just sitting there you almost can get to the point why am I even doing this anymore? Does it really matter? It can feel I feel a lot of times I'm fighting such a big beast. I mean, religion is so huge and so infiltrative in people's lives, and it so affects their brain thinking. It's literally almost like a virus, and it just takes over swarms of people on all parts of the globe. And here we are doing this atheist activism. We're so small in comparison. If you take the entire atheist movement, if you want to call it that, everybody like you and I out there trying to do our little piece of something to spread the message that, hey, you don't need God to be good, and that kind of thing. It feels like we're so tiny. And it can feel at times is there even a point to this? I don't know.
Yeah, but, it's like you're throwing rocks at a steamroller.
Yes.
You're like, they have the funding, they're slick, they've been around for thousands of years. It's just plain inertia at this level. It doesn't seem like a lot of people are listening, or they don't care. And it's easy to become a little bit discouraged, I think. And that's when the love notes make a difference, I think. You have to remember that we're not going to change the world, but if you'll forgive the cliche, we can change the world, or help to change the world for individuals here and there. And that's
they do. And just as a side note, something that I personally do, if I'm I have to write a whole nother album, how am I going to come up with a whole nother album of stuff? That's a lot of things to do, and it gets very stressful. And actually, what I usually end up doing is just taking a little break, maybe a month, maybe 3 months. I'm not going to think about writing at all. And then all of a sudden, things will just start flooding in for me. And I'm like, where's my book? Stuff's coming out of my brain. Where's my book? I gotta write.
And then you're afraid to stop,
the whole
right?
album comes out usually at once. And that's what happened with the first album and the second album. That's just my process, how I deal with
all of a sudden you have a fight with your brother.
Make sure I take it. Oh yeah. I have a fight with my brother on Facebook, and all the people's posts trickling in are just so fascinating to me that I'm like, I need to write a song right now.
Yeah, it's funny when a lot of times for me it'll happen if I'm on a drive, if I'm on the road and I'm just sort of in my own head. You ever do that? You're out and you're just kind of, and all of a sudden something will you didn't ask for it, you weren't looking for it, but it just pops in. And then before you know it, you're like, and then when you get into those zones, are you ever afraid to stop? I'm exhausted. It's X o'clock at night, but I'm afraid to not do any more of this because I'm afraid if I wake up tomorrow, it's going to be gone. You ever do that?
Yeah,
That's
we call
terrifying.
that when you lose something, we call it poofs out and gets lost
It's lost to the universe.
It's lost to the universe forever. If we don't write it down immediately sometimes we'll together come up with something and we'll talk all about it. And then, man, if I don't write down that exact sentence, it is literally gone to the universe and we'll never get that perfect tidbit we had just come up with back.
That's another good one. Hang on. I've got confused and excited. And I've got lost to the universe.
That idea just fly.
Cell phones have been the greatest thing.
Yeah.
Because
we used to jam.
If we haven't turned on all the equipment, I can turn on my cell phone and be like, okay, this is happening right now. I'm going to record this.
Yeah.
And
we used to jam and go, that was freaking phenomenal. And then there's nothing.
Yeah.
No recording. Gone. Let's try to mimic it back on a recording now. No, it never happened.
This is the most interesting thing to me about guitar that I've learned from being with this band is that we started recording a lot of our jams live and things, and that ends up being what I use to create songs for the album. But before, I used to think that I had a really good memory and I could remember how I played things. And what I found is I remember what the chords are, but I do not remember how to play them if they're not recorded. Wow. And so thank goodness that we have recording devices. And I found out that this is not a new thing, that a lot of artists, since the time of recording, have been turning on their tape players or their reel-to-reels or whatever.
Just for jamming.
To capture that creative moment. Now, I might edit it later, but it's because I understand what is going on creatively and I know where to move, not because I remember what I'm doing and from that moment, because it's amazing that you don't. It's almost like science in a way.
Yeah.
That subjectively you think you know what you're doing, and objectively you're just a chimpanzee and you don't know shit.
I've been talking a lot lately about that idea that humans are chimpanzees. Well, I mean, we have this kid and he's kind of hard to deal with. And Steve, I'm like, I'm going to kill him. Why can't he just be normal? Like, why can't he just
I just finished recording 11 hours of audio for an audiobook for Dr. Hector Garcia called Alpha God. Talks about the origins of religious violence and oppression. And it goes well into our evolutionary past and our relationship to lower primates, and how so much of the things that we do as men and women we're coded for that. Genetically, we can see the evidence of our own evolution, and we can see echoes of it in lower primates all around the world. And so, when you talk about the chimpanzee and whatnot, it really is interesting. And some, like, I came from a culture where, like, well, I ain't no monkey, and I'm like, well, you're a primate. I mean, you're an animal. It's just a fact of life. And but it's an interesting, thing to look at our behavior, child, adult, whatever, as creatures of evolution. And it can be amazing and frustrating. It can be confusing and exciting, no doubt. I have no doubt.
Confusing and exciting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Indeed. All right.
So these next two are not good questions. I just realized.
They aren't?
Since we decided. No. Were you always atheist? We know he's not.
Well, yeah, it's a setup question. It's okay. What's your story?
He's a former Christian radio DJ.
Well,
I was not always an atheist.
It's a stupid question, but I guess what's your story? Like, how did this all happen that you became atheist?
Imagine that there's people that are listening to this that haven't heard of you somehow. Unlikely.
No, I mean, there's a lot there. The short version of my story is that, I was my mother and father are hardcore evangelicals. They're both still alive. Dad's 83, mom's 80. Yeah. And, hardcore. They honeymooned in Jerusalem. I was conceived in the Holy Lands. I am not kidding.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I was conceived in Jerusalem. It's kind of gross to think about my parents having sex in the Holy Lands. But anyway, they met at Oral Roberts University. They're both theologian level type believers. And so there was no religious small talk. For us, it was there is one way, it's the Christian way, and that's it. And that's how all the kids were raised, with this confidence that we have the answer. Mm-hmm. Ended up being a pretty good communicator. My voice changed in school. I remember loving Christian music at the time because of my background. And I ended up a Christian broadcaster, and I was in Christian radio for about a dozen years. And I was that guy, we played Amy Grant, Stephen Curtis Chapman, Michael W. Smith, blah, blah, blah. And, it's
names. I really do. I know all those names.
Really? You do?
Yes.
I think
Amy Grant.
Yeah. I mean, Amy, I don't know what she's doing these days. It was an amazing time in my life. But when you're given the answer with a capital A, you don't ask any more questions, right? I mean, I didn't ask you questions.
That is your reality.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about anything. We were taught caricatures of evolution. We thought evolution was that little graph with the little thing coming out of the water, becomes the thing, becomes the chimpanzee, becomes the man. And we were celebrated in our ignorance because we already had the answer. And over the course of time, I remember feeling a real unrest that the things I was participating in weren't washing. They weren't making sense for me. And finally, when I hit 36, 37, I decided that I was sick and tired of not knowing. I don't want to just believe it's true. I'd like to sort of know for sure, because the more I think about all this stuff, the more it doesn't wash. Amazing what happens when you start asking questions. I mean, like you're genuinely interested in the answer type questions. And that's what happened. When you're not just sitting there with that sort of, Kent Hovind look on you, that Ray Comfort look, that sort of pity, pious thing that they have going on. And before I knew it, the whole house of cards it just came down all around me. And so here I am at midlife. I'm working a video production job that mostly serves churches, wondering what am I going to do? How am I going to pay the bills? Are they going to fire me because the owners are evangelical? And even if they don't, I can't in good conscience do this because I just don't buy it anymore. And my family, what's my family going to say? How is this going to affect the rest of my life? It was easily the most tumultuous moment.
Yeah, it sounds like kind of like living in a nightmare. You're like, you probably wake up in the morning and be so confused, like, what should I do? And do I really betray like everybody around me?
Like everything I thought was true, right? Everything I thought was true may not be true.
So scary. Ooh.
It was tough. It was also exhilarating at the same time. It was like I couldn't not know more. And so, after I stumbled upon the Hitch video where he was making really good sense, and before you know it, I pick up Dawkins' The God Delusion, and then I'm picking up Dan Barker's stuff, and then I'm searching everywhere, and people said I was obsessed. And the reason is because I was making up for lost time. I mean, 3 decades of ignorance and not knowing anything. I felt like I was finally getting an education. And at the end, I just had to admit to myself that it was scary, but I just don't buy it. And it took me like another 1.5 years to shake the fear of hell. I mean, that's an emotional connection. So it took me a lot longer, even though logically I knew this is crap. Emotionally, I was still afraid of getting it wrong and being tortured. So. And then the Thinking Atheist was kind of a response to, hey, I don't have any community here. Let me try to reach out online and see if I can find community around the world. And hey, they're out there. So
that is so awesome that you made that decision to do that. You were talking earlier about that you really like about us that we are bold and we say what we think kind of thing with our music. You do that as well. You're just like us. You have that same power, probably even more so. But
I look terrible in leather pants. Like when I let my hair down, it's about to there. So yeah. No, you're very kind. Thank you.
Well, leather pants aside, I don't know. I haven't seen you in them yet. But I would say that
I think we could grow out the hair.
You stop it. You are definitely very bold and very outspoken, very brave for starting this whole thing that you've done. And we appreciate you for it.
Very kind.
Very much.
That was one of the reasons that I connected with you so much, because you're one of those people, and it's probably I don't know, maybe it'll be embarrassing or whatever. But when I first started to lose my faith, I found your show and I listened to it over and over again. There was so many episodes in there that really spoke to me and what I was going through, especially your story of Deconverted, because I was going through the same thing where I had believed things for so long, for so many years, without really ever thinking about them or really questioning them. Like I had been questioned because I actually was a missionary. So I had heard all of the questions that people could throw at me, whether they're from evangelicals or atheists or whatever, but I hadn't really thought about them. And once you start thinking about them and being serious about wanting to know what is actually true, what does the evidence actually show, it's a very different story.
You just shrug them off? Like,
oh yeah, it's called cognitive dissonance. It's not unique. Plenty of people have heard these questions and objections, and they shrug them off because they're told that if they actually examine those questions, there's a very real danger that Satan will capture your soul. So don't think about them.
I had an email from somebody, I think a religious person. They didn't give too much detail about themselves, but it said, "When did you choose to be an atheist?" And I'm listening to your story, Steve, and I'm like, you didn't choose not to believe, right? You just started sort of digging, and all of a sudden you looked around and decided to be honest about what your brain had already done, which is to come to the conclusion that it's not real. So.
I think something's super interesting. I know he's talking to you. I'm sorry. Can I say something though?
Yeah, go for it.
So I think there's something that's been super fascinating to me about this. What you're talking about is where you have an epiphany, like, oh, everything that I have been taught, what? Oh, it's like a rabbit's hole. Maybe you can go down to see, like, I think I see the rabbit's hole. And it's this epiphany you have, like, of just seeing the whole other side could possibly be a reality, and what you've been living in is a dream bubble. And I think it happens, the weird thing for me, because my brother's super religious and we still have all these chats all the time, I've realized in my later life that the same thing can happen the other way. If you're not really raised religious or I don't know what, and then you find Jesus, they describe it exactly the same. It's like an epiphany. I found Jesus and he loves me. And then they go down the rabbit hole of the religious thing. But I don't understand. I can't work out in my brain why that happens, but it's almost the same. It's a very similar epiphany type of response that happens, whichever way you go. And I don't know why that is. It boggles my mind a lot.
I think about emotional rewards might be similar. Yeah. I think how you get there is different. I mean, like, I don't think someone follows the evidence and finds Jesus, right? I think, though, that if someone is in a dark place and someone shows up and says, there is an answer and he will forgive you for all the things and he will make you whole in the next life and you will have happiness forever and you will see your child that you lost to cancer and all of these things, that there's an emotional reward, there's a dopamine kick, there are reasons that people will respond and they will say, this is the answer I've been looking for my whole life. The difference is I think while we feel that as non-believers, for us, in theory, emotion is not driving the train. It's part of the experience, but it's not like emotion is leading us by the nose. But we got there, hopefully intellectually, we got there from a point of evidence and reason. And then as human beings, multi-layered human beings, then we begin to feel that euphoria of, I never knew this world existed. I never knew these people existed. I never knew that I could live life without having to jam the square peg into the round hole. And I get to be me. I mean, that's the big thing for me and for the people that I encounter is, my best friend is gay. I don't have to judge him or worry about him going to hell, or I can celebrate him. I don't have to limit other people. I don't have to put them in a cookie cutter. I don't have to do any of those weird things that religion makes you do to your fellow human beings. I get to just say, hey, that's awesome. And I celebrate that. You know what? I'll go stand next to you. We'll celebrate it together. That's a good place to be, I think.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So basically you're partying with the devil is what your family would probably tell you.
Partying with the devil. I just put a devil's gate in my front yard. I don't know if you guys saw the picture on social media, but you take this takes me 10 seconds to describe. You just take a pallet and you stick it with dirt around it on your front yard and you put a red light in it. And then there's a fog machine and it honestly looks like there's a hole with a gate that leads to hell because there's red light and smoke coming out of it.
Cool.
So we
Oh,
made
that's a
that part
good
of our
idea.
Halloween decorations. And I said, I'm going to send this to mom and dad and just tell them it's the new front entrance to my house. Because
Oh, that's perfect.
come over. We're going to have chicken marsala. Just open the gate, crawl in.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
Do
I
you
just killed the interview. I'm sorry. I just killed the interview with my gate to hell story.
That's good.
No, that's
Love it.
amazing. I just don't know
Okay.
where to go from there
Yeah.
because I
Go
want
back
one
to
in my
this.
house now.
Because you just have a couple more.
Oh, where are we?
I think, no.
We kind of did that one. We kind of did that
Oh.
one.
I don't need to talk about that.
Oh,
This.
yeah. This is a glory of live. Is that
Okay.
if this wasn't
Yes.
live, that moment would have been cut out.
I love it.
Yeah, it's there
I'm
now
doing
forever.
I'm doing some more live streams myself, and I love it. So
Oh yeah.
It's fun. It's confusing and exciting.
yeah, confusing and exciting.
Okay. Do you want to read it? Or shall I?
Who read the last one?
Okay, so you've written a few books, Deconverted, Sacred Cows, and now Ghost Stories, an audiobook that just dropped in time for the best holiday ever, which we just listened to, by the way. It's very cool.
Thanks.
Please tell us more about just everything you're doing.
It's weird, I Ghost Stories was partially because I do an annual October broadcast where I was producing these original stories for the audience. But I was putting so much time into them that I thought, well, let's make it official. Let's put it out there in the ether and see if the public will respond to them. And so I wrote some new material. Plus, I kind of needed, honestly, after all these years, there's only so many ways you can say there's no evidence for any gods of any kind. You can, I love being a part of these conversations, atheist activism and humanism and all these things. But I needed something. I needed a fresh challenge. And so Ghost Stories was a way to be a storyteller and use, the imagination, the playground of imagination to sort of participate in my favorite holiday. And it's interesting because occasionally you'll have people and they're like, well, how can an atheist write stories about ghosts? Like they think I believe in ghosts.
Right.
And, an atheist can believe in ghosts. But the truth is that it's like, these same people who are atheists love Star Wars, Star Trek, Harry Potter, Tolkien. We can participate in the playground of imagination and we can surrender disbelief. Yeah. Why in the world are we going to sit around here and try to be these, I don't know what they attempt to be, these weird sort of like Vulcan, they're just like Captain. I totally mixed my Trek metaphors there. Never mind. I'm going to backtrack. But anyway, they seem to be like, they just want to be about facts. And I'm like, what a dry, when pursuing the truth, let's be about the evidence, but let's also be creatures of imagination and creativity. And let's take each other to different worlds. We can suspend disbelief. You go to the movies, you surrender to the film for 2 hours. And then when it's over, the lights come up and you go back to your regular life. And for me, that's what Ghost Stories was like. And so it's like 14 stories. It's about 4 hours long. It released Audible and iTunes. I have high hopes. We'll see how she does. The reviews so far are good, but I'm all nervous, right? It's like watching your child on stage. You're like, just tell me they're pretty and talented, right? Just please say they're good. That's what I'm going through right now with Ghost Stories. But you can find it, Ghost Stories, Seth Andrews. You'll search it. It'll pop right up.
Awesome. We have that in the description box below too, a link to that. I have a question that's not on our list that I just came up with right now, and I must know the answer.
Okay.
Since holiday, this is your favorite holiday?
It is.
Coming up. What are you going to be? Do you dress up?
Well, this will be the first Halloween I'm not actually home because I'm going to London, Paris, Bruges, Amsterdam, leaving October 27th. So we're not actually getting to be anything this year. Last year I was a priest and Natalie was a nun, and it took on a whole other, it took on a whole other connotation. Real fast, if you have a minute, I got to tell you the story.
Okay, please.
So it was in October that I went to the Florida Free Thought Festival. And it's at one of my favorite conferences, and they had a costume party because we were coming up on Halloween. So I took my priest costume down there, and anybody who knows what they actually look like would be able to spot it as a costume. But if you don't, it really is pretty impressive. And it had the collar and it had a cross around the neck and whatnot. So I end up at the hotel and I ran upstairs and I put on my priest costume. And it is amazing how differently people treat you when you are wearing a priest costume. I was in the elevator and people walked in and they literally just became very, like, reverent is the only word that comes to mind. Everything changed. And I was, for the first time, struck by the amount of power that the perception of clergy has to people. And so as I'm walking through the hotel, everyone would look at me. Someone asked me, they were in the restaurant, they came out and they asked me if someone had died in the hotel and that I had been called. Like, did someone die in this hotel? Like, they were afraid there was a dead body and I'd been called to administer last rites. Someone asked if I married people, but no one asked me if I was a legit priest. Like, I could have probably gotten a free room. I probably could have gotten away with murder because people were so deferential. And I found myself going, I'm a fake. It's a costume. I'm a fake. It's a costume. I had to tell them this everywhere I went. And I was struck by, you know, how that image truly does affect people. If I had to dress up this year, I'm going to go see the 40-year Halloween. So I'll probably do Michael Myers. Just, I know it's cliche, but Michael needs, you can never give enough love to that particular horror movie icon. So I'll probably do a little Michael Myers. But this year we'll be in Bruges. Hopefully we'll be seeing people who are celebrating in that part of the world on the 31st of October.
Cool. That sounds like fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's a funny story. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. By the way, if anybody wants all those tour dates, go to thethinkingatheist.com/events and you can see all the stuff that's going on in the Netherlands. And then there are 2 dates in Florida and all the specifics are there. You can go log on and hopefully get a chance to shake your hand in person.
That sounds rad. All right. So now I have the big question for you.
Why is Tally smiling?
He's popping open another beer.
Because this is the do you have any questions for us phase of the interview.
Mostly I just, one thing about
earlier a little bit.
Being the starving artist, I know that musicians don't do what they do because they are, in almost every case, because they are getting rich doing it. They're doing it in many ways, like most creative people, because they can't not do it. Like,
there's a joke about that. What do you call a musician without a girlfriend?
What?
Homeless.
I buy that.
So you do music because you just feel it comes from your heart, and you just must again, the self-expression thing is so important for people, and being a self-expression person then can inspire other people, and you're inspired by people. So it's just this huge reciprocal kind of circle thing that happens.
I do have hope that eventually our music will catch on and we won't be losing money by creating it.
Oh, I hear you. I get you. Well, it's not like, now what you could do is you could say that you found Jesus and then the church will lap you up and you can go do the church
Atheist band went religious.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You'd be in Christian Post tomorrow. You'd be in Charisma magazine. If you were unscrupulous people, you could probably.
Yeah. But Seth, do you understand that we would be adding to the 1 billion Christian musicians that exist on the earth already? There's like 1 billion, and we're the only atheist.
Well, here's the other thing:
full-on atheist, all the time atheist band.
Yeah. Maybe people don't know it yet, and they will. God damn it, they will. That we're doing something unique, and it's something that hasn't been done before, and it's exciting, and you should listen to this shit.
People ask me sometimes, they're like, look, I want to make a difference. What do I do? And I usually start where you are, because they're thinking if I'm not activisting on a platform at a convention, then I'm, that's what they think. Or I need to have a podcast, or I need to do that. I'm like, well, first of all, start where you are. And secondly, find out what your gifts are and what the desire of your heart is. So, you know, if you are someone who is musically inclined, who has a gift for songwriting and performance, I mean, that's a no-brainer. If you're not, the last thing you ought to do is try to go out and put an album out. Your gifts lie elsewhere. Play to your gifts. And so that's what I don't have a question for you, but it's really more of an observation. What I really like is the fact that you two, you know who you are, you know what you do, you know why you do it. And it's not, we're not burning the world down yet, but you have a niche that you're filling. You have a role that you are playing. You have an audience that really enjoys and appreciates who you are and what you do. And I think that's massive. And so while we're still in a quality over quantity game, I'm hoping quantity will also join that equation as we continue to see the rejection of religion here in the United States and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
So are we.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I like what you said about that. It's basically, I'm sure we probably share this idea, but there's something special to what we're doing that we don't think has been done before. And I know that you feel it for your thing and what you're doing as well. It inspires you and keeps you going, along with the love letters and other things to inspire and keep you going. But it can be tough at times.
Well, let me be your love letter.
The world we live in.
That what you do matters, and what you do is unique, and it's it resonates with people. And Sony's not knocking down anybody's door yet, and we're not seeing it's a struggle. It's activism is a struggle on every level, but it still matters, and it's still amazing, and it's still something that no one else could do exactly the way that you do it. So keep doing it. That's my love letter to you guys. Okay.
Oh, thank you. And literally ditto right back at you, and all of your work for us has been very meaningful as well.
Well, it's a joy to be a part of this broadcast and your lives, and I'm sure we'll do this again at some point. Now, when the new album happens, you realize you're coming back on the show, right? You're coming back on my show.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, you're going to be blown away. These songs are just, you thought the first album was fearless?
All right. Have your people contact my people. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we'll do the thing.
It keeps me up at night sometimes. I'm thinking about, is there such thing as being too fearless? Oh, because I wonder with one particular song.
I think with this album, what you're going to find is
it's more fun.
It's more fun. It's definitely just as atheist. It's more fun, and I'm going to drop the title.
It's more ruthless
for the people who actually watch the show to the end. It's going to be called Black Sheep.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. And IR one, so I can relate.
Yes. We confront a lot of tough topics in this one, way more than the last album.
Of course, the song.
But in an amazing melodic, in your face. Wow. Oh my God. The music that Steve made for this album is so phenomenal.
Black Sheep at a party. And I will never forget, because we played a bunch of our songs, and then we played Black Sheep, and we didn't make any special announcement or anything.
It's going to be the title
We just started playing it. And when I started playing the guitar parts, the entire room hushed.
And was just
And when Tally started singing, everyone turned their faces and just did not leave looking at her until the song was over.
There's a moment, huh?
Good song.
Cool.
This song will be a moment.
We joke about is it possible to write a atheist anthem of sorts? But I think maybe. We have multiple on the album, kind of in a sense.
Yeah,
but this one song I think is just
the album. We've focused on two
everybody
things.
Like that.
One is picking up the pace of the song so they're a little bit more fun, and two is writing anthems that atheists can identify with. And I think we have several songs, but that song is probably.
And hey, we've also totally, for album 2, we've been upping our skills. I took vocal lessons to learn how to scream, and also just have more dynamics in my vocal approach so that I can do a softer and also a more screamy thing. Whereas Steve also has just been studying all kinds of different genres of guitar and creating a new sound for himself as well on various songs. So I think we've really stepped up our game. Was our whole goal with album 2.
I think with the first album was just basically the feeling I got when we were in the studio is, can we actually even pull this shit off?
Could there be a such thing as an atheist rock band? What would it sound like?
We kind of proved to ourselves that yes, we can. And so now this second album is going to be so much more than that. Like, yes, we can do it. And now let's see what we can actually do.
So what we are seeing here, we are observing the evolution of Monster on Sunday. Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Oh,
Evolution is
Pretty
not a
much,
dirty word.
all right. I'm excited about it. So, all my best with the project.
All right.
All right, Seth. So thanks again for being a part of the show. It's been so amazing having you here. And I'm really glad that hopefully we were able to bring a little light into your day. I know I saw your video earlier where sad about things, state of the world and stuff. And
Oh yeah, it's a joy to be able to talk to you guys. You guys are my family. I look forward to bumping into you out on the road someday. And in the meantime, you keep me on the short list when the album goes live. Just call me up. We'll do the show together, and be safe on the road out there, okay?
thank you so much. And if you guys want to learn more, please check out the Thinking Atheist podcast and support Seth on Patreon.
Thank you.
We also have music, merch, and more going on in the description below. Please check it out. We have lots of awesome things in the description.
Yeah, we have a Fuck God promo going on to get an awesome discount on stuff too right now.
Yes.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, no one's going to forget that promo code.
So,
we're also giving away a title of one of the songs on the next album.
oh,
All right.
what? Okay.
Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. So until next time.
Are you ready, Seth? We're gonna do it.
Oh yeah.
We're Monster on Sunday.
I'm so lame.
Thanks
That's
for
like
joining
having your
us, son.
parents do it, you know.
Thanks for joining us, son.
We'll forgive you because you're a badass.
We'll see you guys soon.
Love you.
Be good.
Godless Rockers.
Godless Rockers. See, I missed it.
Bye, dear.
All right. See you.